It's hard to talk about. I don't really know where to start, but right from when I was a child, one thing I was aware of, that the lack of love in our home. My mum and dad was always arguing. My mum had a very violent temper, and from the age of about 5.5, 6, I can vividly remember being hit on many occasions. To the extent it wasn't just normal hitting, like we'd get a copper stick beaten over us, or a chair broken over our back, or kicked, or, you know, we got to the point where me and my sister used to be terrified to come in the house. There wasn't a day in my whole childhood that I can't remember my mother not ramping and raving about something, or watching her kick my dad about, and he would just stand there and take it. And from a very early age, I became to, you know, loathe, hate my mum, and also my dad, not because he wasn't a loving person. He was really gentle, but I detested him because to me he was just a coward letting a woman do that to him. I was very nervous before eventually when I became violent, but in the early days I was very withdrawn, very quiet, and yeah, my education was hampered, yeah, because I had mates at that time. Many of them were turned out to be villains and that. And I presumed that I was a big influence in their lives, but no, and I used to look at them. You used to take my cousin. We were mates from the age of about 10, 8 maybe. We used to go around playing together. We'd go around. And his mother would always but be loving to him. Even when we was 13 and 14, we used to smoke, you know, kids are not smoking. She would give him a fag or give me a fag and things like that. Yeah, I know she'd done some things that were wrong, but there's that loving and caring. She'd always give him sixpence in those days to go to ABC Miners, you know, the Saturday morning, yeah. And I was never given that. Many times my mum would say, you dig the allotment on that and do this and do that and you'll get sixpence to go to pictures, but when I'd done all that, then I wouldn't get the money.
There must have been a time when you did have laughs.
Oh yeah, I mean, from a very early age I can remember thieving. I think that comes because, I don't know if you're looking for attention or you want the things that other kids have, but me and my sister would go in Woolworths and shoplift. I remember we used to play hooky at school. Me and the fellas that I eventually become members of the gang, we would get our mark and then we used to have to go across the playing fields to the woodwork shed. And we'd fall out and go into the toilets and we'd leg it up over the toilet wall. We used to have to go across the playing fields and away down to the old river, which we used to call the Black Dam, and we'd smoke and make dens and things like that. The school attendance office only around my mum's house, but that was just another ride and I could take it. I got to the point where beatings didn't bother me in the end. It even went on to that age when I was 13, 14, She was one of her rages one day, pulling out handfuls of my hair and beating me, and something snapped in me. And the next thing I knew, my mum was on the floor unconscious. I'd beat her back. First time I ever ate back. And that was a point in my life where I said, never again was anyone going to knock me around, abuse me. And that was the turning point. From there on, my shyness from school went. I would use my fist and settle all the problems. I become totally unruly. Teachers couldn't handle me. People couldn't handle me. And my first crime was when we broke into a rugby club. First of all, just for mischief, me and Jock, that's my cousin, the other guy I always used to went around with. We used to fight together back to back so we wouldn't get a bottle on the back of our head. And we spent our own life together before he was killed. And we were just wrestling about, and he slung me up against this club wall, and the door opened, and we went in there just to do a bit of mischief. And when we thought, oh, come on, let's have a laugh, we went to the first aid room, and we got out the scissors, and then we found the rugby players' shorts, and we just cut all the middle sections out and said, you know, we'll let all that hang out when they go out Saturday, just to have a giggle. And then we got the oranges and started firing the oranges around all that. And doing, you know, mischief in general, putting stuff in the boots and things like that, we thought would cause a bit of a giggle. And all of a sudden, just for no warning at all, you know, this is how evil is. You know, all of a sudden I started seeing my mum's face on light fittings, different things, and I just took an iron bar and something just snapped, and I just leveled the place. And you know, Jock was trying to calm me down, my cousin. He said, you've gone off the head, what's wrong? And we eventually left the place, but before we left, we just wrote our initials, Jock and Sammy, that was my nickname in those days, played hooky on such and such a day. So I didn't take the bill long enough to find out, you know, put two and two together who'd done their job. And we went to court, and I was on probation, and found about 30 quid, and in the 40s, that was an awful lot of money. It meant my mum had to pay it. It meant another beating.
And what happened after that?
Well, eventually I left school, but I got into trouble. I mean, I would go out Friday nights, I wouldn't come back into Monday mornings. I'd spend 2 and 3 days at a time in London. I didn't care what my mother said. I didn't care. I was beyond control, beyond up. She couldn't even control me at that point. And I always warned her, you touch me again and I'll kill you. And things got unbearable in the house. That in the end, that she just didn't bother. I would get involved with all manner of crime. I'd thieve, break into places, sell stuff. I was working on the railway at that time. I got involved. You know, you used to get privilege tickets if you worked on the railway. It means you could travel third price. And I used to get these and flog them off to people. Other stuff I got found out about, lost my job. Many other crimes. Broke into a warehouse, stole loads and loads of stuff, and I would just go around conning people, you know, go into shops and things like that and tell them that I was an insurance broker for a bankruptcy firm, or this was fire damage gear, and I would flog it that way. Eventually I met up with a young girl, and I got married at the age of 19. After 1 week of being married to her, I went to court, and obviously they found out about a lot of other crimes. One of these crimes involved a large amount of whiskey, alcohol and cigarettes, thousands and thousands of pounds worth. And I ended up in court with all members of the gang, about 20 of us. And when the magistrate started sentencing, it started off with fines and probation. And when it got to me and Jock again, it was down to Winchester for medical reports. And the report came back, these men are too violent, they've got to go to prison. And off I went to Lewes Prison in Sussex at that time, and that was the hardest YP, young people's prison, in the country. I became an animal to survive the jungle. Now, it didn't improve me, it made me worse. And I really generally wanted to go straight, but my wife wasn't interested in that. She's very irresponsible. She married from what I was. As much as I'd try, see, I know now that to get out of that position, I should have got out of Basingstoke, got out of the town where I was born, got away from the environment. And in those days, when you come out of prison, you used to have a national insurance card, and all the weeks it never had a stamp, it'd have HMP, Her Majesty's Prison, so everyone knew where you'd been and you couldn't get a job anyhow.
Ron, I believe you started a small business.
Oh yeah, first of all, it was the construction. I used to subcontract and do curb laying and things like that. I still had all my mates working for me. And I used to do many hours work and generally work hard. But somehow things used to just go wrong. It seems that everything was just, every time I tried to go right, things were stacked against me. Yeah, eventually I got led back into crime to keep my family together. And again, I went into prison. This time it was Winchester. I'd done a 9-month spell in there. met up with all kind of criminals, and most of what I was doing later on in life, I learnt the trade in there. And I came out, and again, I was determined to go straight, wanted to go straight. I had a paint and decorating business then. On a number of occasions, my wife would leave me. And I used to wander around the streets with one baby in the pram and two on the handles. Even an animal don't desert its children. And in the end, I knew what had happened to me. And I remember one night I come home from work, because I used to get up early hours in the morning, put the kids into nursery, to school, go to work, come home, do the washing, and I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. And one night I come home, the welfare were there, and they said, "We've come to take the kids, you can't go on like this." And I just blew my top, and but eventually my wife came back, we got them back, and I planned to murder her this time. I used to just scream and said, "This can't be happening to me, this isn't happening, it's just a bad dream. I'm going to wake up." I just could not believe this was happening to me.
Was there anyone who you felt could help you?
Nobody. It turned to drugs. Yeah, I was on Seconal sodium, Amytal sodium, other drugs, just enough to just block it out. I mean, many times I almost killed myself. Many times I'd be taken in to be pumped out and things like that for a drug overdose. Yeah, I planned to kill my wife for a start, because I knew she was going to clear off as soon as I tried to go straight. My kids were going to go in, and I just wanted to keep my family together. And I dug a hole under a bottom of pigeon loft, and I was going to murder and bury her there. 2 days before I did that, she went. Otherwise I'd done it. But what really made me sure that I was never going to get involved in that kind of crime again, I remember when she came back again, and to keep my family. You see, people say, if you were such a hard case, Ron, why do you let a woman treat you like this? You say, I loved her. I don't know if people can understand that. And above all, I love my children. And they were my life, and if it meant I had to go to hell for them, I was prepared to do it. I didn't care about what people thought of me. I didn't care what I appeared. As long as I had my wife and my family, I was holding on to desperately to what, to me, was the only thing that mattered to me in my life. And yeah, and I was on top of this roof pulling a job off with a mate in a bigger estate. We was going to take all the lead off this roof, thousands of pounds worth. And whilst we were doing this, car pulled up with two plainclothes blokes. The first thing that went into my head, detectives. And I picked up the axe and I said to my mate, the first police comes through that door, I'm taking his head off. I mean, I was that vicious, I would have killed them. But by the grace of God, there were two estate agents looking over the property. And when I realised how close I'd come to murdering a policeman, I said, no way, that was enough. And I decided from there on I was going to go straight, yeah.
When you decided to try and go straight, how did it actually work out?
Every time there was a crime in my area, obviously I was the #1 suspect. And I would keep telling them that I'm trying to go straight, but I would go on ID parades. And in the end, yeah, I was approached to be an informer. If I did, it would prove to them that I was going straight. And I agreed to be an informer, and that's